Jack Miller, 38 and weathered by single parenthood, jogs with his 11-year-old daughter Emily, their matching sneakers crunching through fallen leaves. A scream pierces the peaceful morning. Two little girls near the pond's edge slip, tumbling into the dark water. Without hesitation, Jack dives in, pulling both to safety, their cries muffled against his chest. A woman rushes forward, expensive heels sinking into soft grass, eyes wide with horror. Jack freezes when he sees her face. Stay with us. This touching story reveals how the past can come rushing back in a single breath. The woman is Victoria Hayes, 37 and radiating the controlled authority that comes with corner offices and quarterly board meetings. Her tailored navy suit is now splattered with mud and pond water, her designer heels creating small craters in the grass as she rushes toward her rescued daughters. She gathers the twin girls into her arms, their small bodies trembling with cold and terror, her voice breaking as she whispers desperate thanks to the stranger who pulled them from water that could have claimed everything she treasured most. But when her eyes finally focus on their rescuer's face, the gratitude in her expression falters, replaced by something far more complex. Years ago, a lifetime that feels like yesterday, Victoria was Jack's first love, the woman who had shared his dreams before walking away when his construction business collapsed beneath a mountain of debt and failed contracts. She had chosen security over uncertainty, ambition over love, leaving him to rebuild not just his finances, but his faith in forever. Jack stands dripping in the morning sunlight, his carpenter's hand still gentle on the twins' shoulders as he ensures they're breathing easily. His jaw clenches involuntarily as recognition floods through him, muscle memory of heartbreak that never quite heals completely. Emily tugs at his wet sleeve, confused by the sudden tension radiating from her father. "Daddy, are you okay?" Emily asks, her young voice cutting through the charged silence that has descended over the small group. Victoria's lips part slightly, her professional composure cracking as she whispers his name like a prayer or an apology. "Jack?" The air between them grows thick with the weight of shared history. Two worlds that had spun apart now colliding again in this moment of crisis and relief. The children, Emily with her father's steady brown eyes, the twins with their mother's delicate features, stand as bridges between past and present, innocent of the complicated emotions swirling around them. Victoria struggles to find words that can navigate between gratitude for her daughter's safety and the awkwardness of this impossible reunion. "I thank you for saving them. I don't know how to." Jack nods curtly, his protective instincts still engaged as he scans the twins for any signs of delayed shock or injury. "They should be checked by a doctor. Cold water, possible hypothermia." His voice carries the practical concern of someone who has learned to focus on immediate needs rather than complicated feelings. But Victoria catches the careful distance he maintains, the way he avoids meeting her eyes directly. The twins press closer to their mother, seeking comfort and warmth, while Emily moves protectively to her father's side, sensing the undercurrents she can't quite understand, but instinctively recognizing as significant. They part awkwardly after exchanging the basic information required by the situation. Phone numbers for emergency contact, assurances that the girls are physically unharmed, promises to follow up with medical attention. But as Jack takes Emily's hand to guide her away from the scene, Victoria's eyes follow them with a look that lingers longer than gratitude requires. Walking away across the autumn-strewn path, Emily glances back at the woman whose expensive clothes are ruined and whose perfectly styled hair is escaping its professional arrangement. "Daddy, who was that lady? You looked sad when you saw her." Jack squeezes his daughter's hand, not yet ready to explain how some chapters of life never quite end, even when we think we've closed the book. 3 days later, the brass bell above Jack's woodworking shop door chimes with unexpected visitors. Victoria stands in the doorway, holding the hands of her twin daughters, all three dressed more casually than their previous encounter. The shop smells of cedar shavings and linseed oil, tools arranged with methodical precision. Jack looks up from the dining table he's been sanding, surprised by their presence but not entirely displeased. "We wanted to thank you properly," Victoria says, her voice carrying less corporate authority and more of the warmth he remembers from before. "The girls insisted on bringing you something." The twins approach Emily shyly, offering a plate of homemade cookies decorated with uneven frosting and too many sprinkles. Their laughter fills the shop as sawdust glitters in afternoon sunlight, streaming through tall windows. And Emily immediately begins showing them the smaller projects Jack has taught her to work on. Victoria moves through the shop with careful attention, her fingers trailing along smooth wood surfaces that speak of patience and skill. Jack watches her face as she takes in the evidence of how far he's traveled from the man she once knew. The successful contractor who drove expensive trucks has become a craftsman who measures success in satisfied customers and his daughter's laughter. "You're gifted," she says quietly, examining a hand-carved jewelry box with delicate inlay work. "This is beautiful." The compliment carries weight because it comes from someone who understands quality, someone whose current life is surrounded by expensive things, but who recognizes the difference between cost and value. They find themselves at a small corner table where Jack usually eats lunch, sharing coffee from mismatched mugs while the children explore the shop under Emily's careful guidance. The conversation starts with safe topics: the twins' recovery, Emily's school performance, general inquiries about health and happiness. But slowly, inevitably, older wounds begin to surface like debris rising from disturbed water. Jack tells her about the years after she left, the bankruptcy that taught him the difference between failure and defeat, the long nights working construction jobs to pay off debts while caring for Emily after her mother died. His voice carries no bitterness, just the steady tone of someone who has made peace with his past while learning from it. Victoria listens with focused attention, but her eyes show the cost of choices made for security rather than love. She admits that her marriage had been a careful arrangement between compatible ambitions rather than hearts, ending in a divorce that left her wealthy but emotionally bankrupt. "I thought success would feel different," she says, staring into her coffee cup. "I thought having everything would mean being happy." The children's voices provide a soundtrack of innocent joy as they discover the simple pleasure of creating something with their hands. Emily teaches the twins to sand small pieces of wood, their concentration absolute as they learn the rhythm that transforms rough surfaces into smooth possibilities. Gradually, their conversations extend beyond the shop. Victoria begins bringing dinner for Emily when Jack works late, her expensive heels replaced by practical shoes that can navigate sawdust-covered floors. Jack finds himself teaching the twins basic woodworking skills, their small hands guided by his patient instruction. Late one evening, after the children have fallen asleep watching a movie in the shop's small back office, Jack finds himself sharing thoughts he's never spoken aloud. "I don't know if I can forgive her," he confesses to Emily later, his voice heavy with the burden of protecting his heart while watching his daughter grow attached to the woman who once broke it. Emily, wise beyond her 11 years in the way that children who have experienced loss often are, considers this carefully. Maybe forgiveness isn't about forgetting Daddy. Maybe it's about deciding that what happened before matters less than what happens next. Her words hang in the air like sawdust settling after a day's work. Simple truth that cuts through complicated emotions with the precision of a well-sharpened tool. Keep watching, because the past always demands to be faced. The phone call comes on a Tuesday morning when Victoria is reviewing quarterly reports in her glass-walled corner office. Her ex-husband's voice carries the cold calculation that made their marriage feel more like a business partnership than a love story. "I'm filing for custody of the girl," he announces without preamble. "My attorneys have documented your recent instability, dating a tradesman, exposing the children to inappropriate environments, prioritizing personal relationships over their welfare." Victoria's hands tremble as she grips the phone, the familiar panic rising in her chest, the same feeling that has driven every major decision of her adult life, the terror of losing control that made her choose security over love all those years ago. The threat is devastating: conform to his expectations or lose her daughters. She finds herself outside the courthouse after meeting with lawyers who speak in probabilities and precedents, her professional armor cracked to reveal the frightened woman underneath. The autumn air carries the scent of dead leaves and approaching winter, matching the desolation that threatens to overwhelm her carefully constructed life. Jack discovers her there, sitting on cold stone steps with her head in her hands, her mask of strength finally shattered by the realization that all her success means nothing if she can't protect what matters most. He doesn't offer empty reassurances, understanding that some problems can't be fixed with good intentions alone. "You're not alone this time," he says quietly, settling beside her with the same patience he brings to difficult woodworking projects. "Whatever this is, whatever you're facing, you don't have to handle it by yourself." The words unlock something Victoria has kept carefully guarded since the day she walked away from love in pursuit of security. For the first time in years, she admits the truth that has shaped every choice since. She didn't leave Jack because she stopped loving him, but because she was terrified of loving him enough to risk everything. "I was so scared of ending up like my mother," she whispers, her voice barely audible above the traffic noise from nearby streets. "Dependent on someone else, powerless when he decided to leave. I thought if I built my own empire, if I never needed anyone, I'd never be vulnerable again." Jack listens without judgment, recognizing the fear that drives people to make choices that protect them from one kind of pain while creating another. He understands now that her leaving wasn't about him not being enough. It was about her being too afraid to trust that love could be stronger than the uncertainty it required. That evening, Emily overhears her father on the phone with Victoria, discussing legal strategies and character references, his voice carrying the steady determination of someone who has decided that some battles are worth fighting regardless of personal cost. Later, when Emily finds him sitting on their small back porch, staring at stars that shine despite the city's light pollution, she settles beside him with the directness that children bring to complicated adult emotions. "Maybe she's not here to break you again, Daddy," Emily says, her young wisdom cutting through his carefully constructed defenses. "Maybe she's here to stay this time. Maybe she learned something about what really matters." Jack considers his daughter's words, weighing the risk of opening his heart again against the possibility that some people deserve second chances, that some love is strong enough to survive the mistakes that once destroyed it. The choice before him is clear but not simple. Protect himself and Emily from potential heartbreak, or step forward to protect Victoria and her daughters from a system that values appearances over love, that would separate children from a mother who has finally learned to put family before ambition. As he watches the stars wheel overhead in their ancient patterns, Jack realizes that courage isn't about being unafraid. It's about choosing love despite fear, about believing that the heart's capacity for healing is stronger than its memory of being broken. The decision he makes will determine not just his own future, but the fate of a woman who once broke his heart and now needs him to help her keep her children close to hers. The family court hearing takes place on a gray November morning when bare trees frame the courthouse windows. Jack sits in the gallery behind Victoria, his presence a silent testimony to the character of the woman whose past choices had once driven them apart, but whose present commitment to her daughters is absolute. When called to testify, Jack approaches the witness stand with calm confidence, his words measured and honest as he describes the woman he has come to know again over the past months. He speaks of Victoria's dedication to her daughter's well-being, her willingness to sacrifice career demands for school plays and bedtime stories, her transformation from a woman who measured success in quarterly earnings to a mother who understands that true wealth is counted in hugs and laughter. "She's not the same person who made mistakes years ago," Jack tells the judge, his voice carrying the conviction of someone who has witnessed genuine change. "She's become the mother her daughters deserve, and they deserve to stay with someone who loves them unconditionally." The ex-husband's attorneys try to paint a picture of instability and poor judgment, but their arguments crumble against the evidence of a woman who has learned to prioritize love over appearances. Character witnesses speak of Victoria's involvement in school activities, her patient help with homework, her fierce protection of her daughter's emotional welfare. When the judge rules in Victoria's favor, maintaining her primary custody, the twins run to their mother with the uninhibited joy of children who never doubted where they belonged. Victoria holds them close, tears streaming down her face as relief and gratitude overwhelm the professional composure she has worn like armor for so many years. That evening, the two families gather in Jack's backyard, where fairy lights strung across weathered oak beams create a canopy of stars. The autumn air carries the scent of wood smoke from a small fire pit where marshmallows toast on improvised skewers cut from dowel rods in Jack's shop. Emily and the twins have become inseparable, their friendship bridging the gap between their parents' complicated history. They laugh over perfectly burned marshmallows and compete to see who can catch the most fireflies in mason jars that will be emptied before bedtime, because freedom matters more than collection. Victoria finds herself truly relaxed for the first time in months, watching her daughters experience the simple joy of being children without the weight of adult anxieties pressing down on their small shoulders. The sound of their laughter fills the space like music, creating harmony from voices that had once seemed destined to remain separate. As the evening settles into comfortable conversation and the children's energy finally begins to wind down, Victoria moves closer to Jack on the old wooden bench he crafted from reclaimed lumber. Her hand finds his with tentative courage, fingers intertwining like puzzle pieces that have finally found their proper place. "You saved me twice," she whispers, her voice soft enough that only he can hear above the crackling fire and distant children's voices. "Once from the water when my daughters were drowning, and once from myself when I was drowning in my own fear and pride." Jack squeezes her hand gently, feeling years of hurt and uncertainty finally begin to dissolve like morning frost touched by sunlight. The weight he has carried since she left him all those years ago starts to lift, replaced by something lighter and infinitely more valuable: the possibility of a future built on wisdom earned through loss. "Then don't leave this time," he says, his voice carrying both vulnerability and